Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Pantry to Plate. I'm Kristen, the food bank dietitian, and we're coming to you from the Kaiser Permanente Learning Kitchen at the Atlanta Community Food Bank. So today I wanted to start off by sharing some really important information about child hunger within our community. So it's summertime and children are home from school, and a lot of those children depend on school meals to help nourish them throughout the weeks. So we understand now that there are kids who are home and there are households who are struggling a little bit more because they're not able to rely on those school meals. Did you know that 1 in 10 children, or 154,000 kids within our service area, are estimated to be food insecure? And it's worse during the summertime. So we wanted to highlight this information for you because we have a special guest who is our Summer Hunger Ambassador, and I'm really excited to introduce her to you. So I would like to introduce, this is Chef Leanna Pierre.
Hi everyone.
She's our Summer Hunger Ambassador, and she is a contestant on season 2 of GPB's Great American Recipe.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here at the Learning Kitchen.
I am too.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So last week I talked about rice and how you can understand the different types and what happens to them when you cook them and what types of dishes that they fit into. So today it makes sense for us to continue the conversation. We're going to make some dishes with rice.
Yes.
Yes. So what are we making first today?
So we're making 2 dishes today. I'm going to be making a lighter version of red beans and rice. Now I will caveat this by saying, if you're thinking this is additional Louisiana red beans and rice, it's not. But if you like those flavors and like those ingredients, I think you'll like this one a lot.
This one is food pantry friendly, so most of the ingredients you're going to be able to find in the food pantry, and then we're going to talk about some substitutions that you might be able to do if you need it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The second dish we're going to make, this is actually one of my husband's favorite comfort foods, and he actually taught me how to make this, is mackerel and rice. So if you're not familiar with mackerel, it is a type of fish. You can often get it in a can. It's very versatile, and so we'll be making mackerel and rice in a tomato-based sauce.
This was a first for me, and I thought it was really delicious. So I'm excited for you to share that with us today.
I am too.
Yeah, so let's get started.
Yeah, let's get to it. Let's start with the red beans and rice.
So here we go. We've got all of our ingredients here for the red beans and rice.
Okay.
So what are we doing today?
So first things first, we're going to start with a warm pan, and we're going to get a little bit of our olive oil in that pan. Now, what I like to do is I actually like to start by browning the sausage first and then removing it from the pan. We're just trying to give it a little bit of color, get it a nice brown color to it, not necessarily cook it through all the way because it's going to simmer in the sauce after. When I add the sausage to the pan, I like to space it out because if you put them too close together, they can sweat, and so they don't get that nice brown color that you're looking for. So that's why I like to put them in one at a time instead of just dumping them all in there so that I can space them out appropriately.
It's almost like it's getting steamed in the pan versus getting browned.
Exactly.
You want it to,
Yeah, so you try and make some space and not move them too much once you put them down so that they can get that nice color that we're looking for. I'm using a turkey sausage today, but you don't have to. If you had andouille sausage on hand, you could use that. And, you know, even if you had an Italian sausage, it doesn't need meat at all. You could have it with just the beans, however you want.
I love that this is a bean-heavy dish because that's a really great protein source for our friends who don't eat meat. And I wanted to ask you, if you're not using a smoked sausage dish, is there, not a dish, but you know, smoked sausage, is there something you can add to it to give it a smoky flavor to like replace that?
You can. So there is a product called liquid smoke that you can add a little bit of it. It tends to be very potent, so you really need just a little when I say that, but you can do that. Also, if you want to try smoking the onion before. So instead of dicing it right away, if you wanted to try and smoke the onion to get some of that flavor in there, you can kind of try and do it in an oven with like foil and let that get in there. That's another way to do it. And then also there are some barbecue seasonings that the dry seasoning, not the actual like barbecue sauce, that have a little bit of smoke to it. So if you have a barbecue seasoning at home, you might want to try and just put a little pinch in there. I think it would work well with Occasion seasoning.
I think so too. That does sound delicious. And what comes to mind for me is smoked paprika.
Oh yeah.
I always think of smoked paprika and it tastes like barbecue potato chips.
That's a good one. That's a good one too. Readily available. See, there's so much that you can do with it. It's really all about what you have on hand. Like for me, recipes are great guidelines, especially if it's something that you've never made before, so you're not really sure how to do it. But then based on what you have on hand, or even just what your taste preferences are, you switch it up how you need to.
Exactly. And that is really key with this series of Pantry to Plate. We're thinking what's available in the pantry, whether that's at home or at an actual food pantry in the community.
Absolutely. And you can get as creative as you want. That's the fun thing about cooking, right? Like you get to let your creativity really take you as far as you want it to go.
Yeah. Just come to the kitchen with a little bit of confidence and you just can go up from there.
Hey, I'll be honest, everything doesn't always work out in my kitchen, but you know what? We learn and we do better for the next time. And even when it doesn't work out the way I planned, it's usually still pretty good. Yep. I've created something new.
You just change the name of it and keep it moving.
There you go. There you go. It's blackened. No,
I love that. Yes. A little too dark. That's totally fine.
Don't worry about it. We meant to do that. Don't worry about it. So as you can see, the sausage is starting to get that nice color, almost like a caramelization on it. So that's what we're looking for. So we're going to do both sides and then we'll remove them from the pan and get started with our veggies. But I like to do this first.
It also like kind of flavors the oil up a little bit
does.
too, right?
Mm-hmm. So you get some of that flavor from there in the oil. That's part of why I love to do that. And even some of the brown, we had already cooked that one. Even some of the browns to help give a little bit of color once you add the garlic and the onion. So multifunctional here. And still keeping them spaced out. And they'll start to curl up a little bit. That's okay.
Normal, like bologna.
Yep, that's exactly what I thought of. It's bologna when it caves in. You have that pop in the center. That's
so satisfying.
It is satisfying to watch. It really is. I think I'm going to reuse this. I'll put these in there when we're done. They all came out of there.
Do your tongues feel good with your spatula?
I think I'm okay with my spatula.
Cool.
I'm one of those people that I try my best not to dirty more utensils in the kitchen than I need to, because I love a clean kitchen, but I hate washing dishes. So I try to make as few dishes as possible,
yes.
Reuse what I can, because there's nothing worse than having a fabulous meal and then you look over at the sink and there's a mountain of dishes that needs to be clean. So I try to keep it light and clean as I go so that I can just relax after I've had my good meal.
Yeah, this is technically a one-pot meal.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm a fan of those.
Me too.
Especially during the weekday when you're busy. And I'm a mom, so my son has school. I just had a 3-month-old, so she keeps me busy.
Yes.
So anything that is quick and light and doesn't create a mess, I am all for it. Anything that saves time.
Yes, we're all about easy recipes here.
And this one is really simple. It really there's not a lot to it, but it can pack a lot of flavor. And because of the beans, along with the sausage and the rice, those are all like really filling ingredients on their own.
Yeah.
And so when you combine it, like it really gives you some bang for the buck. Aha, see, we did all right with our little spatula.
So good. We'll just add a little bit of oil and flavor back in there.
There you go.
Go to the next step.
Whoop, man overboard. All right, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our onion.
And if that's not the sound you hear, your pan is not hot enough.
There you go. It is one of my favorite sounds. Cooking is such a sensory experience. What you hear, what you smell, what you taste, even depending on what you're cooking, what you feel, So if you kind of can tap into that, it's really a cool thing to feel as you're going through the process.
Absolutely.
So we're just going to saute these onions until they get translucent, so they look a little bit see-through. I like to add the onion first because when your pan is hot, if you add the garlic, especially if it's too hot, you get that burnt garlic taste. And once you have that burnt garlic taste, you really can't get rid of it, and it kind of ruins the dish.
Yes, start over.
Yep. So I like doing the onion first because it provides like a little layer so that even if your pan is too hot, you don't get that burnt garlic taste to ruin your dish.
100% agree. That's exactly what I do too.
Yeah. I don't remember where I learned that trick one day. I'm like obsessed with watching cooking shows. I was probably like watching The Chew or something like that. And it's probably something from Carla Hall or something. I don't know. But ever since then, I was like, yeah, that's true. I will never do that again. That makes so much sense. All right, so we've got a few cloves of minced garlic that I'm going to add in.
What did we say about measuring garlic earlier?
Listen, I measure until my heart's content. Like, even with my own recipes, I could say 3 cloves of garlic. I'm like, it feels like a 6th day, you know? And then the thing about it, the garlic cloves are never the same size, right? So when you say a couple cloves of garlic, some are like this small, and then some are like this big. So you never know. My thing is just do what feels right. If you don't really like garlic, leave it out. If you like a little, put a little. If you like a lot, put a lot.
Absolutely. And if you don't have fresh garlic, you can always use garlic powder.
Yes.
We were talking about how underrated garlic powder
and
onion powder, right?
They do not get the respect they deserve. Onion powder and garlic powder, I'm telling you, if you don't have them in your spice cabinet, they are top tier. You need to have them because they just add such great flavor to so many things, whether you're doing veggies, whether you're doing meat, you're doing carbs, like there's so many ways that you can use them. So, and they keep well, right? Like obviously fresh onion is great, but you have to worry about the spoilage, right? Those spices, they're going to keep longer, they're going to keep well, and they're still going to give you that great flavor.
Absolutely. It smells so good. It's just garlic and onion. That is like the foundation of every delicious meal.
Honestly, I will tell you, whenever I smell onion sauteing in a pan, I think of my grandma. Because so many of her dishes started that way. So I don't even know what's coming next, but immediately that's what
you're like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm not
you
worried.
You just know. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to add in our kidney beans. And we're also going to add in a little bit of chicken broth here. I'm just going to give it a stir because sometimes it settles at the bottom, so you just want to stir to make sure you're getting it evenly. We're going to put a little bit of that in there. I'm not going to put the whole thing. I'm going to let it simmer down for a little bit and add as I need to. One of the reasons is I like for the sauce to be nice and thick. Mm-hmm. And so the more of the broth you add, even though it adds flavor, you're thinning out that sauce. So I usually reserve a little bit back, and if I need to add more, because you can always add more, but once you put it in, it's a little bit harder to take it out.
Yes.
So we're going to let this simmer on the side.
Perfect.
And then we'll get started with our next dish and we'll return to this.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, so we need.
I'm gonna put this over here.
Okay, sounds good.
Go back in eventually.
You tell me when and I'll grab it.
Okay. Make sure that I have this one on so it's actually cooking. Okay, there we go. All right. So now, is it restarting?
No, you're good.
Okay.
No, you're good.
So now that we've got the beans simmering on the side, we're going to give that a little bit of time to break down and soften. And we're going to get started on our mackerel and rice. So first things first, we're going to put the oil in the pan and let it heat up a little bit because this is a cold pan. So we're just going to let this come to temp. And then I'll walk you through what we're going to do. So we're going to saute the onions and the bell pepper and a little bit of tomato paste. And then the mackerel is actually in tomato sauce. And so we'll do the onions, the peppers, the garlic. Then we'll add in the tomato paste, kind of bring that sauce together. And then finally, we'll add the mackerel with tomato sauce. And then we're going to season with a little bit of salt, paprika, and thyme. That's it. It all comes together really quickly. I have some tasting spoons here. I'm a fan of tasting as you go so that you can adjust. I think less is more. So you'll see me put a little bit of salt, taste, and then see if it needs more. Because again, it's easy to put it in, but once you put it in, you can't really take it back out.
Not take it back out. And with working with the canned ingredients, sometimes we don't have the option to choose a lower sodium if that's something that you have to keep in mind. So always think about where the salt is in the ingredients that you're using first, and then like maybe it needs a little bit more. But sometimes maybe you don't have any more room for salt. Yep. What are some things that you can do for flavor that's not like salt? I have one.
So I will say there are a number of seasonings now on the market that have no salt added, which are great. I am a big fan of Mrs. Dash because it has no salt. So if you have some Mrs. Dash, and they have a wide variety of blends, that's something that you can use. If you have access to fresh herbs, I always think that fresh herbs are something that just really brighten up a dish. And many of them, you know, you don't need to have a garden. You don't need to have space. When I grew up, I grew up in New York City. So we didn't have a lot of front yard or backyard space. My mom grew parsley and sage right at the window, just a little bit of water. You don't have to have a green thumb. And so we always had that to brighten up our dishes.
Love it. I love it. It's fresh pops of flavor really goes a long way.
So what's your secret?
My secret is an acid. So like a vinegar or something like that. Because sometimes our dishes will be like savory or sweet. There might be some bitter, like all the types of flavor components. But sometimes you need to cut it with just a little bit of maybe apple cider vinegar or some lemon juice. And that adds balance. That's
perfect for this dish.
Yeah.
So in the Caribbean, lime and salt for seafood is a big thing. So adding a little bit of lime or a little bit of lemon to a dish like this would definitely kick it up a notch.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's get pan hot in there. I think so. Feels pretty good. Here's what we'll do. Remember what you said, the sizzle, right? Let's see. Okay, we got a little sizzle. We could get a little bit more. You can see all the bubbles around, so it's got a little sizzle. We could let it get a little more, but I don't want to turn the pan up too high because then we don't want to be burning things because we've got some garlic again. Okay, you see it's starting to move?
It's doing it.
We're ready. All right.
Also, like surface area, right? Sometimes you just need all of them in there to get the sound you're looking for.
That too. But once you see that thing start to jump around the pan, that's how you know. And I'm using a spatula to break up the onion a little bit from the slicing. And you can use a fork to do this, whatever you have on hand.
And you can cut your onions and peppers to any size that you like.
Absolutely.
I would just say that you should do them the same, right?
That's correct. Do them the same. And part of the reason you want to do that is because you want to get an even cook. So if you have some that are super large and some that are super small, then some will be, overcooked. Others will still have a little bit of crunch. So you just want to be mindful of that so that you can even cook on what you're doing.
Exactly.
All right. We've got our onions at the bottom. We're going to add our garlic, and then we're going to add our bell pepper. And you can use whatever color bell pepper you have at home. If you have green, you have yellow, you have red, whatever you have on hand. Even if you just have sweet mini bell peppers, right? Like whatever you got, it'll be just fine.
Or frozen.
Yep, frozen ones are great.
Skip the chopping. Get that bag of frozen peppers and onions.
Yeah, that's perfect. Seriously, I am all about saving time. So if you've got limited time and you've got that on hand, throw it in the pan with some oil. It will still be delicious.
Save some time. And some cleanup.
Yes,
definitely going to try to keep the cleanup to it.
Definitely. As you can see, these one pot meals, man, I'm telling you, I'm not a fan of the dishes, but we do what we have to do to keep a clean house.
I often use my cutting board as like my bowls. So like cut it, just move it to the side.
I do that too.
And then everything is there in one spot.
I do that too. I've got my little sections. You should see me on Saturday mornings. I'm making omelets. Like, okay, peppers here, onions here, tomatoes here, spinach here.
Yes.
It looks like a little rainbow on my cutting board. All right, so we're letting these just saute a little bit. The reason I'm not doing too long is it's gonna cook and break down some more in the sauce. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add some tomato paste. And we're just gonna swirl that around, try to break it down from this big chunk just a little bit.
I love that extra step. Such a small step to add to brown that tomato paste and not just add it to the liquid after you've got your liquid in the pan. The flavor that it adds.
It's so much more, it's so much of a more rich flavor, absolutely, I think, when you do it that way.
Agreed. It's a great way to build the flavor. We're talking about not using a lot of salt. You can do that to not use as much salt. And the concentrated product, like the tomato paste itself, doesn't really have any salt in it.
You can get a no salt added one. And it just goes back to what Kristen was saying earlier about knowing your ingredients and knowing where your salt is, where it's hidden. Because sometimes there's salt and sugar in things that you wouldn't even think that there is. And tomato sauce is one of them. Yep. Most tomato sauces that you buy at the grocery store, they have a good bit of sugar in them. And you wouldn't think that because tomatoes are so acidic, but they do. Yeah. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get in our mackerel and tomato sauce. And we're using mackerel, but the thing is, this dish, you could easily do it with salmon. You could do it with canned tuna. Ooh. I mean, you can use really whatever you have on hand or what you like.
I love that. We definitely have the salmon and the tuna often coming through the food pantries.
Yeah. So it's a fun way to do it differently. You know, a lot of people, when they think tuna, they only think tuna sandwiches, but there's many ways that you can use tuna to make a filling hot dish. And I love a good tuna sandwich. There's nothing wrong with that. Yes. But sometimes that can get old, right? You just want something new. So this is a fun way that you can use a familiar ingredient.
Absolutely. But so we learned something new today about the canned fish.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we did. So today, the mackerel, it came in like large pieces and the bones were still there. Now, typically, I actually remove the bones when I'm making mackerel. But what I learned from Kristen is they're packed with great nutrients. And so mackerel bones, if you've never seen them, they're super tiny, like even tinier than salmon bones. They're very, very thin. And so they break down into almost nothing. You don't even realize that they're in the dish, but you get all of the great nutrition from it.
Absolutely. So we're like always taught calcium is good for your bones. Well, if you're eating the bones, you're getting all of the calcium that the fish had.
Absolutely. All right, so now that we've got this in here, I'm gonna add some seasoning. So I've got a little bit of ground paprika, a little ground thyme, and then we're gonna add a pinch of salt. I've got some tasting spoons, and we'll just kind of see what it needs when it needs it. But always taste first. Don't just add the salt just because. So we've got some paprika going in.
And these spices, they don't need any measurements. You can
start
with a little and then add as you need it. I would just always say to make sure you measure the salt.
Yeah, I was always told you just season until the ancestors whisper, "Stop, my child." That's how we season. All right, let me grab a tasting spoon. I'll get one for each of us because I'm putting no salt yet. I like to see where we're at before I go ahead and add anything to it. It's a little too much. Probably needs just a pinch. It really doesn't need very much. Just a pinch.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
So what I like to do, rather than take the dish over there, I just do a little pinch and then I'll stir and taste again to make sure that we got it where we want it. And if by accident you put too much salt, one of the things that you can do is take a little bit of tomato paste with some water and mix it together to try and get that balance back if you happen to add too much salt by accident.
I love that tip. I love that. And you could make this a little more like a soup if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
You needed to add some like water to dilute it down if you got too much salt in there.
You absolutely could. You could turn it into a soup. And if you wanted to serve it with like some kind of whole grain pita or whole wheat toasted bread on the side, be able to dip it in there. The possibilities are endless. All right. New serving spoons. Okay. Oh, how about I actually give you something on the spoon to taste? That would be good, right? All right, here we go. So this is it with a little bit of salt added now. Yep. To me, now it's perfect. It just needed that little bit of thing. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to serve it out. I actually had some rice cooking over here on the side already. Can I have one of those bowls? Because I'm going to do a quick little.
Oh, yes. The plating trick.
Yes. So one of the things that I like to do is I love to plate my food. My husband laughs at me about it all the time. He's like, girl, we are at the house. I'm like, I don't care. There is something about a well-plated dish that just makes it taste better, right? You know, it's kind of like if you're going to work and you decide to dress up a little extra that day and everyone's like, ooh, where are you going? When you do that to your meal, it's like, ooh, what are we celebrating? Yes. And I love to do that. It's a small step. So I like to kind of smash the rice into just a little mixing bowl and turn it out on the plate so you have a cute little mountain. Beautiful. And then we'll add our mackerel on top. Make sure we get some of that delicious sauce and onion in there. Yeah. Okay. And then if you have some fresh parsley for garnish, I'm a big fan of parsley as garnish, but you can also use, if you have dry parsley in your spice cabinet, that works as well. Or if you want a little bit of heat, you can use red pepper flakes.
I think that's what I would choose, the red pepper flakes.
And now we have our dish.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Whoops, here we are. And that came together even more quickly than the red beans and rice.
Oh, yes. I meant it when I said I am all about quick meals, especially on the weekday. I just don't have as much time as I do on the weekend, but I still want to make sure that I make something for my family that's delicious and well balanced. And so this is a very easy way to do it with some really simple ingredients.
Yes, love it.
So we're going to switch back. I'm going to put this on simmer over here because we're pretty much done with that.
Yeah, let's just put that pot up front. There you go.
We'll put that up there. And I'm going to bring these over because I'm going to use these in a second. Don't mind my incessant cleaning. It's just the way I am. I don't know why I am this way. All right, let's get this back on. Okay, perfect.
Just making it easier for yourself later.
Can I grab that tray from you over there for the red beans and rice? All right, perfect. So we've got our ingredients back, and I'm going to move this parsley out the way. And so, all right, cool. So one of the things that I want to do now on the beans to see if they're ready, there are a couple of things you can do. You can do the pinch test. So that's when you take out one, be careful because it's hot, and you can just pinch it in between your fingers. You see how it squeezes out, so you know that it's ready. But also, if you look carefully in the pan, you can see they've started to split open some of them. Yep. So that's how you know they're nice and tender. So now that we've got that going, what I'm going to do is now it's time to add a little bit of seasoning. So I'm adding some Cajun seasoning. If you don't have Cajun seasoning, you can actually kind of make your own by combining a bunch of different spices. So you can take onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, like you can make your own Cajun seasoning. And what's nice about doing it that way is you can control the salt.
What? Who knew?
So this is one of my favorite ones that I like to add. I don't know if we're allowed to say brand names. I don't know. But it's one of my favorite Cajun seasonings from the house. And then I am also going to add a little bit of black pepper. And you might want to dial it back on the Cajun seasoning and the black pepper, particularly if you're serving children. You know, obviously they are not necessarily a fan of things that are spicy. Some are. My son loved spicy things when he was a kid. Yeah. I don't know if it was a bravado moment where he wanted to show that he could do it, but for whatever reason, he really did love spicy food. But you can always dial it back if you don't like spicy food or you're serving little ones where that's not really an option. So, you know, easy on the pepper, easy on the paprika, those kinds of things, and lean more heavily on the maybe the parsley and the onion powder and garlic powder, that kind of stuff.
It sounds like a good opportunity to make it instead of using the store-bought version.
Exactly. And it's all about what you have. I will say that all the time. If you have it, great. If you don't panic. Use what you have on hand. Like, I don't care if it's even adobo that you have. Like, whatever you have, you can make it work.
Yep.
All right. So now what I'm going to do is these beans, I'm going to take out some of them, and I'm going to use a potato masher to mash them, actually. So some of the beans will remain in the pot so that they can be whole, but I mash the potatoes to basically thicken the sauce. Instead of using like flour or making a roux with flour and butter, the actual protein from the beans works as a great thickener.
I love that tip. I talk about that all the time, especially when you are limited like on the amount of ingredients that you can source, or you're not trying to like add any cream or these heavier ingredients. This is a wonderful way to do it.
Yep. So you just make sure you hold the bowl carefully, and you want to hold it closer to the top because where the beans are, obviously, they're going to be very hot. So especially if you're cooking with little ones, maybe let the adults in the room do this one, and you can have them, you know, help scoop it back in with a spoon rather than dealing with this hot bowl.
There you go. And it's got a pink color.
Yeah, it's going to add some nice color back into it. So it's going to go from that kind of yellow color from the broth to more of a kind of rosy color from the beans. And I love when food has color. I was always told, you know, colorful food is healthy food, right? That's what they used to tell me.
It is. That's one of the key talking points.
Maybe not so much candy, but you know what I mean.
We're looking for the natural colors.
Yes, the natural.
Eat the rainbows, what we like to say.
Yes.
Each color has a different set of nutrients and antioxidants, all those things.
Yep.
The more variety, the better.
Now, I use the potato masher. If you don't want to do all that, if you have a blender, you have a food processor, you're welcome to just throw that in there and blend to your heart's content. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. We're not looking to make it a mousse. You just kind of go until you feel comfortable. So one of my little tips about not having certain kitchen gadgets, I say to take the measuring cup and smash it into the pan. Yep. I can't tell you how many times I've used a can of beans as a roller.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I don't know what happened to my roller, but whatever. There's a can of beans here. We're going to make it work today.
It's round. It will roll.
Yep. Again, the theme here is use what you've got.
Yes.
I don't care what it is. Just use what you've got, and it'll all work out in the end. All right. So now we've got our beans in there as the thickener. So you can see the sauce going from being really liquid-like to being almost a little bit more gelatinous in nature. And you've got that nice kind of red color to it. And if I can get you to pass me the sauce. Oh, here it is. Perfect.
It's like, I think I did that.
All right. So now we're going to add back in our turkey sausage. And that looks and smells delicious. And then I added the Cajun seasoning, which has a good bit of salt. So I don't believe that we're going to need any salt at all, but we always give it a little bit of taste and see. Uh-oh. I don't think that needs anything. I don't think that needs anything at all.
That's so good.
So now, same thing, we're just going to use some white rice that I had cooking on the side. And you can use whatever rice. If you have brown rice, you can use that. If yellow rice is all you have on hand, you can use that. If you don't have any rice at all, it actually still tastes good without it. So you can do whatever you want. All right, we're going to put this off to the side. Had a little man overboard here. So I'm gonna smash it down. Now, unlike with the mackerel, one of the things that I like to do with this one, because it's such a sauce heavy dish, I actually like to put a little bit of the sauce in the bottom and let the rice sit in it. So those grains at the bottom get some nice sauce on there. And then I will take my rice and just carefully flip it out on top. And then when we're doing it on top, that's when I'll add really the sausage and more beans and just really make it something fun to look at. And we'll take our garnish. And again, you can use what you have. If you have cilantro, you have chives, whether it's fresh, whether it's dried, if you want to add heat, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And boom, we have our finished dish. Just
So
like that.
beautiful.
What do you guys think?
Yes.
I think it looks good.
I think so too, and I love that tip. Put a little bit on the bottom before you put the rice in there.
Yeah, you want all the gravy is where it's at. You gotta get that gravy. That's where it's at.
Oh my gosh, we are going to eat well when the camera goes off today. Well, good. Well, thank you all so much for joining in to watch this episode with our very special guest, Chef Leanna. It was so fun to have you here, and we had like so much conversation before we got started. It was really great. Let's pull in our 2 dishes here. We got our 2 final products. There we go. Voila. So simple dishes. Rice is your foundation. If you don't have rice, choose another grain if that's what you have available to you. We hope you will try these. If you see these ingredients in the pantry or in your pantry at home. So I begin by talking about child hunger at the beginning of our episode. So I want to make sure that Leanna lets us know about the work she's doing around that.
Yes. So as Kristen mentioned at the beginning of the show, this season I'm a contestant on The Great American Recipe on PBS. For those of you watching in Georgia, GPB, Georgia Public Broadcasting. And so I wanted to use my little 5 minutes of fame that I have to highlight an issue that is near and dear to my heart. You know, I have been living in Atlanta for almost 20 years. I have chosen this place as my home. I'm a mom, I have children, and I know that as a parent, the 2 things that you want to do more than anything for your children is protect and provide for them. And when you can't provide for one of their most basic needs, food, it breaks your heart. Mm-hmm. And so even though, you know, I may not necessarily know these families, I haven't met them, these are people in my community. These are children that may go to school with my son, play sports with my son, and I care about this community. I care about what happens in this community. And so I know the need is great and I can't do everything and I can't help everyone, but I do believe that if we all do a little bit of what we can, when we can, it goes a long way. So that's why I signed up to be an ambassador for the Summer Hunger campaign. And I'm encouraging people to go to acfb.org and make a monetary donation if you can. If you're not in the position to make a monetary donation, if you have some food that you can bring down to the food bank, we'd love that too. And if you're not in the position to do either, if you could just share this with other people, help us get the word out, that also goes a really long way.
Absolutely. You're going to find the link on our screen here, and I'm also going to have it in the chat box so you can click it straight from there, and you can contribute if you can to Leanna's Summer Hunger campaign.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here.
Are we hugging? Can we do hugs?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so season finale.
Yeah,
is coming up in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
So you'll have to keep watching to see if I make it to the finale or not. They switched things up this season. And so all 9 cooks are staying until the second to last episode. They're going to identify the top 3 cooks. So I don't know. You're going to have to watch and see if I make the cut. I'm not saying anything.
So much anticipation because you know what the results
I do, but I can't tell you. You're going to have to watch and find out. And if you've been watching, you'll see my journey has been up. I've been in the tops, and my journey has been down. I've been in the bottom. So who We don't know where it's going to shake
keep
out.
us honest, right?
I am. Keep me on edge.
So you can tune in to that season finale of The Great American Recipe on August 7th at 9 p.m. on GPB.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to see you guys in a couple weeks for our next episode of Pantry to Plate. And until then, we'll see you then.
Bye.